It's Global Entrepreneurship Week. You now have this role as champion of enterprise. I choose my words carefully. You've been travelling the country, talking to audiences such as this, meeting entrepreneurs, meeting business people. What has that left you feeling about the quality of entrepreneurial talent in Britain right now, and maybe the support that it needs?
Well, I mean, Enterprise Week is very necessary. I think we need to continue with it and it focuses people on the need for seminars like this for entrepreneurs or people who call themselves entrepreneurs to come to. And I'll get on to that point because I think it does bother me a lot in the use of this word entrepreneur, and that is when people use it as referring to themselves. It is a word, I believe, that was designed for someone else to use it in observance of someone else's achievements. And it's one that gets used too freely, in my opinion. And I would just say that, aspiring to be an entrepreneur or be a business person is better terminology as far as I'm concerned. What have I seen since I've been doing this kind of government role in the last few months? Well, I've seen some very good examples of people that are running businesses and are resilient in this so-called economic depression that's out there. I've seen them actually doing very well in some cases, and I've seen situations where the entrepreneurial spirit has kicked in the sense that they have stood back for a moment and said, you know what, I'm not going to play in this market at the moment. I'm thinking of preservation of my business. I'm going to look at what I've got at the moment and step back and count to 10, because if I get up in the morning and read the national newspaper, I have two options. One is to stab myself, or the other is to put the covers over my head and go back to sleep again. So in that kind of environment that was created by the media, there was a window in time. I would say, I was talking to someone earlier on who said to me and confirmed, it was like the September to March of this year was a pretty dull time for businesses as a whole. And some of them businesses have stepped back and said, well, we're not going to play in this market until we've seen the thing sort itself out. So I've seen some very great examples of businesses that are actually up year to year, up on where they're going. I've seen some great examples of, in high technology, of entrepreneurial ideas that have actually been taken on. One in particular in Cambridge was a kind of a software-driven nose, put it in simple terms, which actually smelt out possible things like explosives and all that type of stuff, used in military application, and they got themselves contracts with the American government. And then they kind of used their entrepreneurial spirit to actually say, well, we've been funded by the government, not our government, the American government, to develop this product. But you know what? Industry needs this product also. Beer-making industry, for example, needs to smell whether the yeast has gone off or something like that. And so they've applied that onto food making and all that type. So that's very good. I've also seen some, pretty disastrous situations out there in the past few months of people who have, in some cases, used the so-called recession as an excuse and have used it to blame others, particularly banks, and pass the blame on to everyone else except themselves. I've seen some examples of some hopeless cases that I don't think anybody in this room would lend a penny to, let alone me. And unfortunately, there may have been some mixed messages out there where people may have misinterpreted the message from the government that banks should go and help people. Of course, banks should help people in business, but banks are in business themselves, and they are a business, and they've got to make a profit. And the fact is that 2 years ago, coming up nearly 2 years, I guess we got into this economic problem by the irresponsible behaviour of certain banks. And are quite understandable now as to why banks are not acting irresponsibly. So, you know, there's people out there that are making some unjustified claims and hiding and covering up their own deficiency, to be perfectly honest. But I must say they are the minority. Yeah. And what I've seen to date is some very, very, very positive stories. Regretfully, the minority is what the media like to pick up on, and the minority creates the headlines. There's not enough positive stuff in the media of what I've seen out there, and there are some great success stories out there.
Well, we'll come on. You use the word so-called recession. I'm sure we'll come on through the evening to, you know, how tough it is and what qualities are required to cope during this time. I'm going to go straight to a question from online because it relates to what you've just been saying a bit. Do you believe that now is the right time to set up a new business? Given what you've said, given the environment that we're in, is now actually, paradoxically, a great time to be setting up a business? You know, and this is from a property business specifically.
Well, properties, I mean, you've picked a difficult one there. I mean, look, I started my business in a so-called recession, okay? And I'll be perfectly honest with you, call me thick or call me whatever you want. I didn't know what a recession was, and I didn't care less, because I had made my mind up that one Monday morning I was going to start working for myself. And it was tough out there. And it's as simple as that. And the reason I started my own business was because I attained some qualification in the business that I was in. I didn't leap out of bed one Monday morning saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to start a business. Yeah. I had to attain some expertise in some subject. And it was actually in wholesaling electrical goods. And what prompted me was that after spending 2 or 3 years working for someone else and not being patted on the back, I said, well, I can do what I'm doing for him myself, okay? But I didn't invent that one Monday morning, because on the Monday afternoon when I had to go out and start selling the stuff, I had to know what I was doing. I didn't just get a pin and stick it in the FT and say, I'm going to go into that sector. And this is the biggest problem that I come up against with young people. The biggest problem is getting them to understand that you don't just fancy being in business. There has to be some idea, something that you are expert in, something that you've attained some expertise in before you can even consider it. It sounds very, nice and cool. I'm starting my own business, but it's not cool, believe me. It's tough, very, very tough. And, and that's why this question is always very difficult to answer, because if the person would have said to me, I've spent 3 years working in some chemical company and I've seen the way they do it, and quite frankly, I feel now going off and doing it myself, do you think the time is right now? I could answer him. I'd ask who the customers would be, the potential customers, what the market is doing in chemicals. But I can't just answer a blanket question like that until I know specifically what industry you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, that was property, so...
Well, the property market at the moment, I mean, my answer to him is, have you got any money? Because if you've got
you're going to need it.
If you've got any money, then yes, this is a great time to start the property business, because there's some opportunities around there where banks are not lending to people, in the same way as they were in the past, and therefore property prices are depressed. So if you've got some money... it might be a good time to go around and pick some up. If you're thinking of going to a bank because you've got the seed of an idea, forget it, at the moment in the property market. They're not interested. They're just simply not interested, and I don't blame them. Unless, you're prepared to stick some of your own money into it. Yeah.